and welcome to Ravenstonedale. We're back in the Yorkshire Dales and in Cumbria. If you want to know a little bit more about why it's a bit confusing, then do watch our Great Aspie video, which explains it in a little bit more detail. Ravenstonedale, also known as Russendale by the locals, and then heading out along Smardale Beck, along the Darlington-Tebay old railway line, heading past an old lime quarry, along Smardale Hall and a couple of railway viaducts. It's a nice there and back walk, a couple of undulations but relatively flat because it's on the railway line, and about 8 miles long. So let's go and have a look, shall we?
Today's walk starts in the picturesque village of Russendale, nestled in the foothills of the Howgills. In the centre of the village is St Oswald's Church, built in the 18th century on the site of much older buildings. The church has a rare triple-deck pulpit, with the tiers denoting seniority, with the lower tier for the clerk and upper tier for the preachers, so the readings reached throughout the church.
Relics found here include the base of a Saxon cross on the south side and ruins of a small 13th century Gilbertine monastic house behind the church. This quiet outpost of Wotton Priory in Yorkshire was founded by Henry II and would have housed a small number of canons engaged in farming the local land. It closed following the dissolution of the monasteries in 1540, fell into ruin over time, and partly became the foundations of the current church building.
Smardale Beck winds its way from the hills above Russendale down through Smardale Gill towards the River Eden, with Gill being the local name for a steep wooded ravine. Before the viaducts further down the valley were constructed, a bridge was built in the 18th century to carry local traffic along the packhorse routes for trade and agriculture, and is now part of the coast-to-coast long-distance walking route.
wow! Look, you can see the viaduct. Nearly there. The Darlington-Tebay Railway line crossed the Pennines to carry coke to the iron and steel blast furnaces in the Barrow area and iron ore to Cleveland. It later ran passenger trains through this scenic Pennine route to serve the tourist areas of Morecambe and Blackpool in Lancashire. The line was closed in 1962 after steelmaking finished. British Rail quickly lifted the track and removed some of the smaller viaducts on the route. Look at the size of these. They're massive. Shall we see if we can get up and have a look?
These industrial lime kilns were built in the 19th century alongside a limestone quarry to produce lime for construction of the nearby railway viaduct and later transported for use in steelmaking. Ashfell limestone here is plentiful as part of the Great Scar Limestone Group, which stretches across the surrounding landscape. Major repair work was carried out in 2023 when 30 tonnes of mortar was injected into the rubble to shore them up. You can see more of the limestone landscape in our Great Aspie Scar video.
The first and grander of the two viaducts on the route is Smardale Gill Viaduct. At over 30 metres high, it carried the railway over Scandal Beck via its 14 arches. It was built in 1861 by Cumbrian engineer Sir Thomas Bouch to complete the Darlington-Tebay Railway. The viaduct had a major restoration in 1992 when it changed ownership and opened as a footpath, and again in 2024 to repair damaged and protect from water ingress. We visited just after the second restoration was completed.
The second viaduct is Smardale Viaduct, which soars 40 metres above Scandal Beck and is the highest of the 21 viaducts on the popular Carlisle to Settle Railway. The railway travels through a remote rural area of northern England and the terrain was challenging, including here where the foundations are 14 metres deep. It was built slightly later than Smardale Gill Viaduct in the 1870s and instead of sandstone was built with local grey limestone.
At the furthest point of our walk today is Smardale Hall, a fortified house originally built in the 14th century by the Smardale family, with the current hall and towers built in the 16th century by the Walcott family. At one point it was much grander, and today's hall with a tower at each corner was formerly the west wing. Today it's a working farm which has many additional outbuildings and self-catering accommodation.
Our return walk brings us away from the railway line and through the Smardale Gill National Nature Reserve, which is managed by Cumbria Wildlife Trust. The lush vegetation in the valley lies over its industrial quarrying history, which can be seen here in the lumps and bumps of the landscape, including sandstone to build Smardale Gill Viaduct. The limestone bedrock here acts as a nutrient for a variety of grasses and other plants which play host to wildlife, including the rare Scotch Argus butterfly.
At the end of our walk today, we visited the Scar Art Gallery for a look at local artworks on sale and to enjoy a coffee and brownie sitting amongst the paintings and sculptures. As it's a small cafe, do make sure to get here early to get the best choice of cakes.